Does being an artist come with an expiration date?
If it wasn't for Tony,
What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming back with a new video. I know it's been a while, but I'm back, and this is a topic that I've always thought about for a while, but I'm just getting around to doing it. I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all are going to think of different examples and artists that also go along with this topic, because it's a really broad topic, but it's so many different examples from many different spectrums that we can discuss this. And this topic is about ageism in the music industry. And I know a lot of y'all might be like, but I mean, I feel like Aaliyah is a perfect example of that. But also, not with only Aaliyah, I could think about Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, and even now we have artists that I grew up with in the 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, like Beyonce, Usher, Rihanna. They're getting into their 40s if they're not already in their 40s. And when you're 40, right, the big 40, right? That's like, people feel like, oh, you old, like, especially as an artist in the music industry. No matter how much success you had, that's kind of like all right, you getting up there in age, like, what you gonna do? Like, oh, you like. And then I noticed another thing is, if you're not at that Beyonce level, Rihanna level, especially if you was a 2000s artist, people consider them like washed up or has-beens, or I'm like, wow. And I really want to talk about that. I really want to get your opinion on that, because that's a topic that always intrigued me. First off, let's talk about ageism in its direct sense, right? So ageism, as I Google it, is the prejudice or discrimination on the grounds of a person's age. And specifically, I'm talking about in the music industry, right? When I talk about this, it's from two different spectrums, or it might be another one. Y'all let me know down below in the comments, right? Where it's like how young you are or how old you are. That really affects how you're seen in the music industry, how you're perceived, the prejudice or the preconceived notions that people might have about you, or, do people take you seriously or not? Because you think about it, you're like, as a young artist, you're still young. You're still trying to figure out who you are as an artist, who you are as a person, especially if you're still young, going through puberty, all that stuff, right? Then as an older artist, 30s, 40s, even 50s, 60s, you're well seasoned, you live life, you have the life experience, and you could put all that, channel all that into your music, into your artistry, compared to a younger artist still trying to find their path in life, still trying to figure out who they are. They don't even know who they are as a person, how they want to be an artist. And you know what I'm saying? Because along with being an artist in the music industry, you have to have an image. You have to know who you are, or have a sense of self at least. So, talking about Aaliyah, I think she said it best herself.
age ain't nothing but a number.
Age ain't nothing but a number. Not in the sense of that song, but in its literal meaning, literal definition. Age ain't nothing but a number. And Aaliyah proved that when she first came out. And along with Aaliyah, she set the path for like that early teen female 90s R&B, wave. Then you had Brandy, then you had Monica. But before Aaliyah, it was Usher, then you had Tevin Campbell for like the males in the industry that were young, teenage. And as a lot of us know, with Aaliyah's story, Aaliyah's beginning in the industry, she had a hard time really finding a label because she was considered too young. She wasn't developed enough. And let's really talk about it, right? Because as a young artist, Aaliyah was like, when she first started doing this, trying to do this, she was 12. But labels felt like she wasn't old enough, her voice wasn't developed enough, and she just wasn't ready. And then, eventually at 14, she signed a deal, and the rest was history. But then you think about an artist like even Monica. When Monica came out with her album, Miss Thing, right? All those songs, how powerful singing and the soulful vocals, half, if not all of those songs on Monica's debut album, she recorded when she was 12 and 13. And then Brandy was 14, just like Aaliyah, when those songs, when she recorded them at least, came out on her debut album. And then Usher, Tevin Campbell. I mean, it's just like, and another thing is, with Aaliyah's case in the industry is, a lot of people, a lot of executives in the industry, they didn't take kid acts seriously, But I feel like that whole wave of Aaliyah, Brandy, Monica, Usher, all of them, Tevin Campbell, and even Shanice. And then you had like groups like High Five, and all of these kid acts, because they was like 14, 15, 16 and older or younger, they proved that age ain't nothing but a number. Like, okay, we're young, but we can still be great artists. We can still be successful. We can still, have successful recording careers. And I felt like with ageism, in Aaliyah's case, and her peers at the time, there was this sense of like nobody's gonna take them seriously, and who's gonna really buy an album of a 14, 15-year-old singing about love and this and that? What do they know about love? What do they know about relationships? They're 14. They didn't even go through puberty yet. They didn't even have a first kiss yet. You know what I'm saying? But Aaliyah, Brandy, Monica, all of them, they all proved that no matter how young they were, they could all be successful. Also, let's not forget how Aaliyah did this at that young age and still graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA. Just had to throw that in there. But let's continue. And the reason why I really bring that up and I really bring them up is because by the age of say 22, which is when Aaliyah passed, she was already a veteran in the industry, along with her peers. By the age of 22, by 2001, they were in their early 20s. Aaliyah, Brandy, Usher, all of them, they were already veterans in the industry at age 22, 23, 24, because they've been doing this since they were young teens. And that's the thing, where it's like, when I look at it now, like Aaliyah will be 41 right now. Yeah, Aaliyah will be 41 right now. Like, would Aaliyah still be successful, or would people still be, or would Aaliyah be like, oh, okay, she getting old, like, okay, like, all right, she had her time in the industry, now it's time for the new artists to come up. Because that's what I see a lot of people doing with like Beyonce. Beyonce is still successful, but I see comments here and there, like, even like Rihanna's in her 30s now, people begging her for music. But people, I feel like it's that sense of like, where it's like a new generation, it's a new, like, okay, they had their time, they had their success, now it's time for the new wave to come in. Like, okay, they're getting up in age, they can still drop something, Beyonce can still drop something, it might go number 1, top 5. But I see that sense of like, all right, it's time for some new people to come in. And another thing with the industry is people like something fresh, people like something new. Even though you already an established artist, you have that great success, you have that great name, you have that great brand to yourself, to your artistry, to your name, to your face, to your image. Another thing with the music industry and this generation specifically, with social media, they want something fresh, new. Like, okay, what's next? All right, that was a hit, what's next? That's how it is. Adding to this discussion, you could also think about how Aaliyah passed at 22 years old. She was still developing as an artist. She was still developing in age, still developing in life experience, still developing in her vocal delivery, in her artistry, and her performances. So it's like, people like to compare her to Brandy and Monica, Beyonce. They're like late 30s and their 40s now. They got a chance to really develop to full capacity, in my opinion. So that's another question too, where it's like, do artists hit their peak at certain ages? Does it take that certain age for artists to really hit their peak? And what age is really an artist's peak? Or does it depend on the artist? That's another great question and another great discussion topic. And another thing I was just saying, because you see how, how Brandy and Monica are now, right? And a lot of people like to group Aaliyah with them. And even you could say Usher. Usher had much great success even into the 2000s when he was in his 30s. But now, you know how like Brandy and Monica, they're 40 now. They're both at least 40 now, right? And their music career is not really at the peak it once was. And a lot of that, I feel like, is to do with their age. And they consider like 90s artists. They consider like nostalgia. Like, okay, you was the past. You was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you was hot. Now you're just, you're an icon. You're a legend. You're a veteran. But, if they release a song, it's not going to go top 5. It's not going to go top 10. Their album is not going to sell 500,000 in the first week. Like, it's crazy how you could once be considered like a teen sensation, an idol. And now, years later, you're like, oh, you're a has-been, a 90s artist. You're nostalgic. You're nostalgia. You're the past. You're a throwback. You know what I'm saying? Like, throwback hit. You're a throwback artist. You know what I'm saying? If I want to listen to something from the 90s, oh, okay, throw in some Brandy and Monica. But, Brandy and Monica just released a new song. I don't really want to hear that. That's the attitude a lot of people have. And of course, Brandy and Monica still celebrated, even Usher. But I feel like that's the tag that they get. Notice that once an artist, especially an artist that started in their 20s, once they in their 30s, and then especially like once they hit their 40s, it's kind of like because even like Nicki Minaj, when Nicki Minaj was in her 30s, Nicki Minaj started in her late 20s and now she's in her 30s. I've even seen, they have the feuds and everything. But another key thing I always remember people saying is, oh, Nicki Minaj is old, she getting up there. It's time for her to give the new girls a break, give the new girls a chance, give the new girls a chance to shine. Like, all right, she had her time. Now it's time for Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, and I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot in just the social debates and discussions on social media and stuff. So I'm like, what y'all think about that? Like, once an artist gets in their 30s and 40s, is it time for them to hang it up?
Hang it up, flat screen.
Or it's just like, no, I can still be successful. And matter of fact, I might even be my most successful. Perfect example, Tina Turner. And it's something about the last name Turner that is, come on. Come on. Tina Turner we already know, you look up her performances, she was really known for like her performances like in the 50s and 60s with Ike and his band, her backup dancers, and she was dancing wild and singing, she was energetic, and she really put on a performance, she really gave a show, she really gave her all in every performance. You look up a Tina Turner performance, especially from the 60s, she really gave it her all. And I really recommend anybody watch her HBO documentary because it goes into full detail. And even, Broadway is opening back up. I saw a Tina Turner musical. It was amazing. I left a review on it. I'm gonna leave it up here for y'all if y'all want to see it. It really goes into how, like, okay, everything happened after the 60s and 70s, then it came in the 80s, where Tina Turner was really trying to go solo as her own artist without the attachment of Ike and the band, and she was trying to be a solo artist. But mind you, this is the mid 80s. Tina Turner was going into her mid 40s, and a lot of record executives was like, a black middle-aged woman trying to be a solo pop artist. That was just seen as like the most taboo, uninspiring, unhiring, most potentially unsuccessful act possible. And a lot of the white execs and the European execs didn't want to even hire her, or didn't even want to give her a chance, or didn't even take her seriously, because it's like, you in your mid 40s and you're a black woman, who wants to really hear a song from you? Like, it's not going to be that successful. Back in the day, you was doing your thing, right? But, it's the mid 80s. Nobody want to hear from you. That was the attitude. But tell me why Tina Turner came out with this.
Love got to do this.
And it turned her into a global phenomenon. In her mid 40s, Tina Turner became more successful than she ever was. She became an icon, a global phenomenon. She became, she was like huge. And I knew that song was huge. What's Love Got to Do with It in the Private Dancer album and her tours. But when you really look at that documentary, her HBO documentary, I was like, wow, Tina Turner became a huge deal. Like, if you didn't know who she was before then, you at least heard the song, you at least heard the name, you at least saw how she looked. I feel like Tina Turner is like a perfect example of talking about, like, okay, age ain't nothing but a number. Okay, I had my career in my 20s and 30s. I'm in my mid 40s now, but that don't mean I can't be a successful pop artist. That don't mean I can't be a successful star, So in that sense, I just really wanted to get your opinion on, like, what do y'all think about the way the industry or just the general public or different things that y'all seen with how people deal with age, and how young or old an artist is or is becoming depends on their success, or how people perceive them, or how the industry perceives them, or how successful they are. It's one thing, like, you can say, for example, like when a teen turns into an adult and you can see them developing in the artistry, and you have like I said, like Aaliyah, Brandy, Monica, Usher, right? And even in like the pop sense of the last 10-15 years, you had Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber. We saw them turn from like young teens into adults, and you see their transformation, right? Musically, aesthetically, artistically. But then you have like the artists that started out in their 20s, late 20s, even young teens, and now they're 30, 30 this, 40 this, and now people looking at them like, the industry is looking at them like, the radio players like, you know what I'm saying? The album sales are like, you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all understand where I'm coming from? It's really that dynamic of how age plays an important role, an important part into an artist's success is really interesting. And y'all know I could not do this video without talking about Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is the perfect embodiment of all of this. He started out when he was young, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, professionally recording since he was like 9 or 10 years old. Unfortunately, it all ended when he was 50, but that's over 40 years of him being in the industry. In a sense, some people, as old as like your grandparents or your great grandparents, they watched Michael grow from a young little boy with the afro to, the Michael Jackson from This Is It. And it's like, okay, of course, even in the 90s and early 2000s, you can see Michael Jackson didn't move and look the youngest or the freshest, but he still had that sense of himself. He still had that artistry. He still had that energy. He still had that passion for his art, for his artistic development, and for his love of music, for his love of entertainment, his love for pleasing his fans, and developing himself as an artist, no matter how old he got. And you think about it, when Invincible came out in 2001, Michael Jackson was in his 40s. And I remember I was young, but even if you look it up, you see things of like, does Jackson still have it? Even in the 90s, does Jackson still have it? Does Jackson still have it? Michael Jackson wasn't the freshest fruit for the picking, but it was Michael Jackson. And of course, Michael Jackson's name helped him at that time. But you also realize like, Michael Jackson was still successful. It wasn't as successful as his earlier projects like Thriller or Bad or Dangerous. And it goes beyond reasons for his age, because he had the whole thing with Tommy Mottola and Sony and all of that. But I feel like, do y'all think that age really, even an artist as big as Michael Jackson, I feel like his age in a way did play into that. And it was 2001. All these new artists and all this new music was coming about, and it was a shift. And Michael Jackson still had that essence of Michael Jackson. Of course, people still wanted to listen to it. His fan base was larger than life. But you really think about it, it's like, did his age play a part in, the Invincible album not becoming so successful and even being so underrated now? Because I feel like out of all Michael Jackson albums, his Invincible album from 2001 is still underrated. And I made another video about that. I'm leaving it up here for y'all. That was just my discussion on ageism in the music industry with just different examples that first come to mind for me. What are other examples of ageism in the music industry that y'all have, that y'all seen and heard or observed over the last few years, And it's Ushers and Monica's and Tevin Campbell's, who they started off real young and proved that they can build legacies and artistries and names for themselves, even as young teenagers in high school into their adult life. And then you had artists like Tina Turner, who proved that, okay, I had a career leading up into my mid-40s, but even in my mid-40s, that's when she became her most successful. And then you have artists like Michael Jackson, who had the embodiment of it all. He had the spectrum of it all. Started off as a young child, prepubescent, into a 50-year-old man. And everything that he went through in his career. And you really think about it, think about how age played a factor in all of their careers and how ageism affected all of their careers. And even now with you have the Beyoncé's, Rihanna's, and even Usher and Brandy and Monica and who else? I see even with like Lady Gaga and Katy Perry, they getting older, and people 2010, they were like the hottest pop artists. But now they're just like, they're considered has-beens and washed up. I see that too. Katy Perry and Lady Gaga. So it's like, what is y'all take on ageism in the music industry back then, now, and what are some examples? Let's talk about it down below in the comment section. This should be a really interesting discussion, and let's pick each other's brains and let's see what comes out of this discussion, because it's really interesting. So anyways, guys, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see y'all in the next video.